Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. We have Mr. Bronson Hill in the house. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Austin. Really excited to be here and talk about mindset and real estate and growth and all the above. So we're excited.
I love it. Man, you did something recently pretty scary. You decided that you hated money and you left your 9 to 5, didn't you?
It did. Yeah, I was making over $200K a year. I was working 30 hours a week. And I decided to walk away just because, well, for a lot of reasons. But yes, it was scary, and it took me a while to get there. And of course, what is the right time to do that if you're going to do that? And so I was able to do it.
It's interesting. I told a coaching client this day because he's switching roles and investing, and I said, "There's two things in this world that if we're not careful, they always find a place, and that's money and time." And if you don't structure your, one of the hardest things I see is when somebody leaves their job and goes to full-time entrepreneurship or investing. It's that 3 month to 4 months kind of shaky ground, like, oh my God, I have all this extra time. And if you don't schedule it properly, it can find places it probably shouldn't find.
Exactly. I think I have, there's this personality test called the Enneagram. And so there's numbers 1 through 9, if you're familiar with the Enneagram, but basically I'm a 3, which is an achiever. And so, there's a saying that says that you will leave working for someone else 40 hours a week to go work for yourself 60 to 80 hours a week. And that's really been true. So it's been more, I've been trying to there's so many opportunities and I'm just hitting a candy store. Now I've got all this time, but then the time just goes. And it is really important to prioritize and of course have family time and all the rest. But it's tricky. It's tricky to balance all that,
What was... and here's the thing, it's like you're so, you're at the top of your field per se in your profession. And you're not upset about the money you're making. You probably don't even dislike your job that much. But what was it that kind of pushed you over the edge finally to make a decision to go off on your own and do your own thing? And, I would imagine that most people live in that kind of gray area for a long time.
I think when we get to be, typically most people get to be kind of late 30s, 40s, maybe it's later for some, earlier for others, but we get to a place where we're really comfortable, right? We kind of stop learning, we stop reading books, we just kind of do life, we know how it goes. And I found it, I don't know if it's just the learner in me that I love learning new things. And so for any sales job, I've done a number of sales jobs in the medical field over the years. Like you said, I've done very well and won awards and different things. But after 6 to 12 months in a role, you kind of know the job. You really know how to do it. You know what's expected. And I don't want to say it gets boring, but at the end of the day, I've just always had that thing of I really want to be an entrepreneur and I really want to do things that I can free up my time to where I don't have to work for money. And so kind of what you were saying is really that time I really think is more important than money. And so if there's ways you can free yourself up to do really what you value, what you love, and what you bring the most value to the world to, I think it's huge. So for me, it was kind of if I can do this, even if initially I make less money, I'm going to be living more out of my passion and I'm going to have the flexibility and have, the autonomy to be able to travel, do those things that I really value and want to do. But it feels like, look, when you're on the other side and you're in the corporate world, it feels like staring over the edge of the cliff and you're like, I don't know, do I have a parachute on? Do I not?
Well, also, it's something interesting. I was talking to my friend about this who left one of her big jobs. It's also the social status that job and that money gives you that's hard to leave sometimes too, because initially you're probably going to take a pay cut right out of the gate. But a lot of people's ego per se, I know that when I was in the restaurant space, I was the top of my game and it was nobody questioned me and I got to do what I wanted to. And it was like, what did that say to me? And then to go out on my own, get my face railed up against the curb for the next 2 years till I figured it out. Sometimes where our identity is so too far inside of what we do.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's easy to get a lot of value and feel like, hey, I'm important here, and I know how things go, and I'm competent. Versus, I feel like I'm just learning to walk. There's a book out by Robert Kiyosaki that's it says it's actually appropriately named it Before You Leave Your Job. So my cousin, who is a real estate guy, said you should read this book before you leave your job. So I read it, and it was really good. It has an analogy that being an employee is basically you are paid not to make mistakes. If you make too many mistakes as an employee, you can get fired. But as an entrepreneur, you have to make as many mistakes as you can, or make a ton of mistakes, and then learn very quickly. And it's that learning process of just, okay, I'm going to try this, and I'm working on this, and oh, this didn't work. Let's do over, and it just feels like a little bit schizophrenic. But if you just continue to reflect and learn, but it is hard to let go of the stability, the safety, the status of having a job.
And what are your days consist of these days? Or is it syndication, or is it investments? What are you kind of focused on?
Yeah, so I'm spending kind of doing quite a bit of time on two things. One is doing multifamily deals. We're closing on a deal today, actually, in Jacksonville, Florida. I raised a couple $1 million for that one. That's a value add project there to add to our portfolio. So continuing to do that. I'm also really building up my YouTube channel. So I went from 14 subscribers in December to 10 months later, I have 750, I think. So I'm growing. I'm working on it. It just again feels like learning to walk, going to YouTuber conferences with 23-year-olds, and just feel like I don't even know what I'm doing. But that's the area of best. The most amount of learning happens when you're in a place where you're like, this feels so uncomfortable. I'm a fish out of water. But getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, I think, serves people really well as we grow.
Well, what's interesting, right, is this is why I believe that you have to have a framework for your life, and then you obviously have to take action, and then things are built off of that. I would imagine that 6, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, you never thought the words "I'm working on my YouTube channel" would have came out of your mouth.
Honestly, I think even a year ago or 2 years ago, I'd be like, no, I'm not gonna. What is that? What do you mean? But no, I feel like for me, it's there's so much upside. There's so much ability to connect with people. And when you have a mission, you have a sense of, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to help people become financially free. It gives a real avenue to help people to do that. And so there's a lot of people who have YouTube channels, a lot of people that do podcasts and do all kinds of things, but to do them really well, it takes a lot of learning, a lot of effort, and a lot of growth. And so just getting your mind around, doing things that you thought you would never do.
And everybody has a different definition of this. So I ask you, what is your definition of financially free?
My definition of financially free is being able to do the things I value and not being limited by money or time. So, if I value something, if I want to spend time with someone, if I want to travel, if I want to invest my time or efforts, then I'm able to do that. And I just think having, not having to have limit of money and then we're all limited to some level by money. I mean, nobody has all the money in the world, but to be able to do more of what you want to do, to be able to live in a way where you're not tethered to a job, you have freedom of time, I think are some huge things.
And do you have partners in the money in the multifamily deals that you're raising that are more the operation side, and you're more the networker relationship, raise money kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I'm involved in the asset management. I'm involved. I go to every property. I'm part of the team, on all the levels. I typically don't find the deal. I'm not the primary asset manager, but it also gives me some confidence that, I don't have 20 years of asset management experience, where I've got a partner in a couple of deals that has over 10,000 units. And so when you have that kind of experience, over 20 years of experience, it just gives me a lot of comfort, both as an investor, as well as bringing other people into it. So that's the amazing thing about syndication, is that you don't have to be good at everything, right? So, but I love networking with people, and I also love looking at deals. So it's kind of both.
Well, what's interesting, right, is a lot of the people that are getting into the game, getting in the real estate space, they're looking at somebody like your partner who has 10,000 units, and they're saying to themselves, I don't know why he would want to work with me. And then they're saying, I don't know how I can add value to this guy. But obviously that's not the case. I mean, you're doing deals with this guy. So when you approach this relationship or this partnership, like, did you have those limiting beliefs, or did you just say, I'm just going to show up where I can?
Yeah. So I think, when you partner with people, I think one thing that's important to realize, several years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't have any multifamily experience. Now I've raised 20 million, and it's been amazing. But I think you have to get kind of out of your own way and realize that everybody has need of something, so great operators, a lot of them, they don't really like raising money. They don't really like doing the investor management, or they don't like doing certain aspects of it or marketing. So there are certain things that everybody can come into and find a way to add value. And so my background is sales, is medical sales, working in surgery, working with doctors, for over 10 years. So I have all that background, and I can use that to bring to add value. And it's very, very similar skill set versus somebody who's an engineer or somebody who's more technical might be really great at finding deals, or more on the asset management side. So it is kind of like, these puzzle pieces have to come together. And with syndication, it's amazing. It is kind of amazing and humbling when somebody's like, oh, wow, I want to work with you, when you're like, wow, this person has way more experience, but you do bring a lot of value to the table.
I think that everybody needs to understand that people are in different phases of their life, and things that they might want to do per se weekly is something different than whatever somebody else wants to do. It's like, when I first got my first like $1 million coaching client, now we're on to like 3 or 4, and you're like, what the fuck what do you want me from? You're like, and then I realized, like, it's not about that. They need somebody with an outside point of view to see maybe like the areas that they're not working. And then I would imagine that from your experience as sales with doctors and medical, like, you have a big pool of resources to get money for these deals. So actually that time served you might have not seen it in the moment, is actually pretty great moving forward on multifamily deals.
In some ways, yeah, it's funny. I was really, for a while, doing this job, for several years, kind of doing both. I was pretty separate. I kept pretty separate. I didn't want one to compete with the other. I had a few doctors that were kind of from older stuff in the past that I've been able to work with, but it's actually been a lot less. I mean, I think in this current deal, I don't know if anybody, the 2 million I raised, I don't think any of that's from people from, it's a lot of friends and family and other people that I've just kind of networked with over time. But it is, it's helpful getting to know folks that are in different worlds. And then you can, if people know you, they have to know, like, and trust you. So if they know you and they like and trust you, it's a great way to be able to raise money. So it's huge.
So you have a YouTube channel, you educate people, you're trying to add value to the environment. What do you think are some of the things that a young person getting in the game or looking to transition their job are doing wrong right out of the gate?
I think a few things, like if I were just out of college or getting out of college, I think I would try to go to somebody that I really, really respect, like somebody really well known, or somebody I respect. I thought they were doing exactly what I could imagine doing. And I would just go try to work for them for free. I'd be like, hey, I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to be an intern. I'm going to do whatever, and just try to be as close to them as I can and just learn everything I can. Because I think when I don't know, it gets to be more challenging as you get older and everybody's situation changes and you have kids and you have responsibilities, you have other things. But when you're young, if you have time, you can just go and learn, and that education becomes so valuable. So I just think being around people that are a step or two ahead, I think that's been the biggest thing. And I pay to be a part of groups and masterminds and events and things where they're expensive to go to, but it really helps me because I get better by doing it. I mean, that's really the only way. I think Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich was like, there's this concept of a mastermind, right? People that everybody who was really wealthy had people they could go to, they could brainstorm, they could bounce things off of. And I think that ability to do that has been so helpful, and it's changed. In one season, it's been this person or this other person, but then as I get to scale my business, then the former mentor is like, wow, you're doing way bigger stuff than I'm even doing. And then you need to find a new mentor, which is great, but hopefully that keeps happening, right?
Yeah. What was interesting is I try, me and Anthony, my other co-host on my other podcast, we joke that like information per se is rarely available. I think what you're paying for in the mastermind is actually somebody else that's dedicated that much to invest in themselves to be in the group also is who I'm doing business with, is who I'm hanging out with, my board of directors. I think the information is great as well too, but I almost think it's that relationship within the group that matters more.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. I mean, we say there's two things to grow. If you want to grow at all, one is education and the second is networking. And I think that networking is just amazing. If you're in the right room with the right people, you're going to grow. And they always say, I've heard somebody say this, that if you're the smartest person in the room, it's time to find a new room. And I just think it's so true. Like if you want to grow, you've got to get around people that are, in different areas, much more expansive and know a lot more than you do. Otherwise, you're just going to be comfortable. And I think that's really what limits our growth the most, is that we get content, or we just say, we just get comfortable, and we don't say, hey, I want to keep growing. I want to keep learning. I want to keep expanding, because, the world has a lot of need. And if we can just bring our desire to help the world, and we can keep expanding that, we will be able to help more people.
Because one of the things that we talk about a lot, I don't think a lot of people understand the concept of it, is like, there's a lot of money, right? There's money, there's deals, there's all those things, but social capital, what I call social capital, I think is priceless. And I think when you have that in the market, and I know you do, because I've heard people talk about you and you're around, you're networking, like maybe like establishing the relationship and planting seeds and adding value and not asking right out the gate. There's a lot of relationships I make that like maybe I don't need anything from them for like 2-3 years, but I'm adding value, that social capital per se. Is that something that you've seen as well?
Yeah, so this is actually probably one of the most pivotal concepts in my success. I mean, here I went from, 3 or 4 years ago, I hadn't raised any money for real estate. And then over the next 18 months, I raised $15 million. And how did that happen? I was at an event, and there was this quote. There's a guy named Jim Rohn. You probably know Jim Rohn. Mm-hmm. And, one of his quotes was, make yourself valuable to valuable people. That might be a paraphrase, but it's the idea of finding people that are successful and ask them, hey, well, try to really think about their business the way they do, and say, how can I help solve this problem? So I did that, and I actually approached a successful syndicator and said, hey, how's it going raising money? I mean, you're doing all these things, but is this really actually working? Because I kind of saw maybe that's a need in his business, and we formed this partnership, and we raised a lot more money than he was able to raise before, and we did it together. So I think the idea of just at every level, looking at people that are going through things and finding a way, hey, is there a way that I can help you solve this problem? And even if you do it for free in the beginning, that's how people get paid really well, is they find a way to solve problems. And the bigger and more valuable the problem is, the better you get paid. So it's just something that, if you go up to somebody really successful, everybody's looking at that person saying, hey, mentor me. Hey, I want your time. Hey, I want this, whatever. But if you're like, hey, how can I get back to you? Like, how's your business? What's the biggest challenge here? Like, nobody's asking that question. Like, they're wrestling with that question day and night. But if you come in, you start asking that question, it completely sets you apart. And that's how great partnerships, I think, perform, particularly with people that, you don't have a lot of experience, but you bring that. It's just like, oh, it's so refreshing when you're a leader. Somebody comes to you and says, oh my gosh. And it's not just like, what can I do? But it's like, oh, I've thought about your business in this way, and this might be an issue. How is this going? And they've actually put some thought to it. It can be life-changing for everybody.
Well, what's interesting, right, is I heard Brad Lee say this on a podcast. He said, listen, if you want to be in somebody's, let's say their ecosystem or their service, like, just give them 10 leads. Like, don't even ask, just like give them 10 leads and go, what do you want for it? Nothing. And like, he's like, I would much rather do business with that person than somebody saying, hey, what can you do this for me? And it's like what I love to do, right, is like listen to somebody's podcast and pull out some weird abstract comment they made and highlight that. And that way they know that it's not some generic message, right? Like, one of the things we talk about all the time is like, should you have to read a book to like, do you create a barrier, right? Like, do you like read this book, like actually give a shit? Because one of the things we talk about all the time is like, everybody acts like they want mentorship, but I don't know if they really want mentorship. And so, we almost like, we created this world in the DM space, especially where there's nobody has boundaries anymore, because you can just DM whoever. And I think that we need to, my mentor did it to me. Like, he said, look, I got 15 minutes this time, this day. And I said, sounds good. And I flew from Texas to California, like for a 15-minute meeting. Like, maybe he was bullshit, maybe it was real, but that 15-minute meeting turned into 2.5 hours. And now I'm sitting in his new hotel that he bought, running it for him. Like,
wow.
So it's like, I live on the beach. I mean, like, this is life, and so look where that came 2.5 years ago. And so, it's one of those things where you paid your dues when you had raised zero money, and now you're at 20 million. What was easier than you thought? And then what was harder than you thought?
Well, I think what was easier is once you kind of get rolling, it's not that hard. I was kind of surprised once you actually, I've heard this said before, that it's not hard to make money. It's hard to figure out how to make money, but once you actually start it and you get it rolling, it's not as hard. And so, and even I was working with a group, and then I branched out on my own about a year ago. I've raised in the last 6 months about 5 million from different investors. That's gone faster in some ways than I thought. But on the other hand, I mean, I guess the unknowns are just, I didn't know that, I would be just as busier that I was when I was working my full-time job, that I just be like, oh my gosh, there's so many amazing things that I want to be involved with. And I really have to limit and say no to people and really limit the amount of opportunities and events and other things that I can do. And that's hard because I just want to do everything. And so I think that's a big challenge for me. And then, I guess it's kind of the idea, almost like when you have young kids, it goes really fast and slow. Kind of feels like that, where it's like, is it like the days, the months go fast, but the days are long kind of thing.
Yeah.
The baby's up all the night and you're, whatever, but before you know it, the baby's grown. And I don't know, do you have kids as well?
Awesome. No, I don't, but basically I'm learning that game in the construction space. Yeah. It's, hey, we got this land. We're going to make you wait for months till you can swing a hammer. Yeah,
exactly. So hurry up and wait. Yeah, that same thing. So it's the idea of like you're building something, or you're growing a child's growing up, and you get to be there with it, and it's painful sometimes. You don't know what to do, but you're committed and you just do it. And it's very similar. It's very similar to having a child. So my daughter's almost 9 now, so it feels a little different, but still you're invested. I'm so invested in her, and it's similar. My business, it's like, okay, well, what can I do to just grow this? And it takes longer, but it also, you see breakthroughs, and that's great. So it's just kind of, just stay in the course, I guess.
And it's interesting because, I ran from it, and I think everybody at one point, every day, I think you're in sales. I think that goes without saying. And I think there's something to be said, to being able to paint the picture. And 90% of the time, what I'm doing with my clients is like crafting a story that they can believe in of themselves, that they can go out and share with the public. Right. And so what do you take away from your years in sales that have really served you and will continue to serve you moving forward?
Well, I think in sales, you do face a lot of rejection. You face a lot of challenges. I started doing personal affirmations about, I'd say 5-6 years ago. And I just, first started doing some canned ones that were just, ones that you could read about yourself and things. But I realized those affirmations, those things that we tell ourselves, and we don't realize we're doing it. We're just saying, oh, I'm so dumb, or why did you do that? Or whatever. We have these things that we say, and those things are really, really powerful. And so every year I typically go to a goals event. I create goals, and out of that sometimes will come affirmations based on my values. And at times in my life where it was like I didn't feel any confidence at all, I would make affirmations about confidence, or I'd make affirmations about wealth when I was very poor, or I'd make affirmations about things, me overcoming certain situations. And it's just been so, so, so powerful. It's almost like with your words, you're able to actually create these things in your life that don't exist now. And that's what's really incredible, is I'm experiencing now stuff that I've been saying for 4 or 5 years, and it's happening, and I'm having to make bigger goals and bigger affirmations. And it's amazing. And I don't know if you're an affirmation guy too. I think, is that a vision board on the back wall there?
Yes, it is. I just noticed. So I just set up my office yesterday. We just moved, and I was like, damn it, I don't know if I want to show them my vision board, but
I love it.
But yes, but what's interesting, right, is I think, and this is what I talk about all the time, I think we get caught up in understanding that currently we're living the life that we were trying to manifest maybe a year ago, right? I wanted to be in private equity. I wanted to do construction. Well, fuck, I'm doing all those things. Holy crap. Now my goals got to get bigger, right? Well, I made this money that I thought was never going to happen. Well, my God, I got to get I got to get my goals bigger. And so, for me personally, it's, and I've been kind of, because I don't share everything in my life, but for me, it's my walks in the morning. So I get up first thing, 4:30, 3:30, 5 a.m. because I have clients on the West Coast. So this morning I started at 4 a.m. over here, but it's like that for me, that 45 minutes, that hour and a half, that's my time. And, you're kind of thinking about things. You're listening to Jim Rohn, you're listening to Napoleon Hill, it's kind of my time to set the tone for my day. And they think meditation needs to be sit down and write. There is such thing as walking meditation. And I don't think that even me, I've realized how much that's changed my flow to the morning. And it's those it's creating, if you don't ask the universe of yourself, like if you don't ask for what you want, then it won't return the favor. And so when you're not saying like, what's really the weirdest thing ever, and I want everybody to listening right now, have you actually told the universe that you want to be successful? Like, have you actually said, like, I will be successful no matter what, and obstacles are just what they are, they're opportunities for growth? Have you said that? Because if you have said that, then the universe doesn't know it, right? And have you, I know like we say affirmations and people are like, oh, that's BS. I'm like, dude, if you speak it, it will come true.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And, again, I don't know everybody's faith background, but even if you go back to like, in the beginning, God said, let there be light, and there was light. Like even then and I just think you can see that in every level. Like there's a personal development group called Landmark where they talk about like, if something doesn't exist in language, does it really exist? Like, how do you know that object is what that is unless somebody can actually identify it? It's just but to actually be able to name it and say it, and the clearer, and I love that I have a vision board or goals as well that I actually do pictures of. And I think the clearer you can get that, the more your subconscious just says, okay, this is where we're going. This is what we're doing. Whatever. And it just works out. Like somehow magically it happens, but it takes the effort of you creating the intention and you committing to it. And there's this quote by Tony Robbins that says, it's in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. And I think that's really true. It's just when you decide to do something, it does change everything.
And I'm not going to get it right, so I apologize ahead of time, guys. But there's this group of guys that I'm about to start the certification on Wednesday. And do you know what the word abracadabra means? I don't. So everybody thinks that it means like spell or like magic or whatever, but it actually doesn't mean that. It means to craft like a message in spoken word. So like what I say becomes true. Is actually the meaning behind abracadabra. And this is what these guys live off of. And so what he says is that 90% of people live their life as if their life is like this. They're writing the book and it's slammed up against their face. He said, if you breathe and you look at it and you write it down, so it shall be. And so it's really powerful because I watched him this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was at a workshop in Austin, and this woman had this story about her father that was like very disheartening. Like he was like being mean to her. And he said, listen, hold on. He said, write it down, say it. She said it, and it was like very uncomfortable for her. And she said, now slow down, say it 70%, and then write it again. And after every period, breathe, and then say it, and then go on to the next sentence. The third time through, she started laughing. And I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And he goes, you just took a minute and you stood back from it and you put it down and you got it out of your head. And that's why people say it's so important to write down your goals every day. Write down your, if you study Nikola Tesla, he has this thing called 369, where you write 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the lunch, and 9 times at night. You can look it up on YouTube. And in 30 days, it will manifest your dreams and your goals. And it's like these powerful things, and you're almost manifesting, out of thin air, right? Like that is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. My mentor was one of the first big, this guy I know, who's my mentor's mentor, was one of the first big dudes in Keller Williams. And at 18 years old, he wrote down 88 things that he wanted to do in his life. And he has 69, and 85 of those things came true.
Amazing. Yeah. It's crazy. Isn't that crazy?
I just like, when I saw that, I was like, okay, I give up. Whatever you say.
That's crazy. It really is. Nothing's impossible. That's the thing. I think one thing you asked too is, well, what has surprised me is just that, nothing, like the only difference between myself and anybody else that's really, really like A-list, successful or celebrity or whatever, is just, they believe they're able to do it. And it's just our own belief and our own intention to like walk through it. So it's really amazing to watch. And it does feel like magic when you do that and something's created just by you saying it and walking it out.
I love it. So if people want to find out this amazing YouTube star, Bronson, how would they go about following you and subscribing?
Right. So they could go to just, YouTube and search Bronson Hill, and I'll come up. I'm there's also a professional football player named Bronson Hill, but he looks a lot different than I do. But yeah, they can follow me there. I also wrote this report. This is called The Single Best Investing Strategy During and After a Pandemic, 24 color pages. It's on my website, bronsonequity.com. So a couple ways to connect with me there.
I love it. Guys, if you like this episode, send it out to your friends. You better go subscribe to his YouTube channel. I want to get this guy up to 1,000. And yes. Then he'll officially, his 9-year-old would officially thinks he made it by then.
Yes, that'll be a
start. So send it out to your friends, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.